Good start, isn't it? Hello, is anybody there? I'm back. Just briefly popping in to check you're all okay. Wow, it's been a while, hasn't it? Oh, look, and there she is, right on cue. Evie, no, come say hello. Come here, come say hello. Come here, come say hello. They've missed you too. Come here. I'm just going to bring Evie round, and those of you that oh, she's going to run under the table. Those we're playing hide and seek. Evie, come here. Those of you that haven't joined me before will know that we get interrupted quite often by this crazy little monkey. Oh, there we go. There she is. That way. Camera's over there. Now, you can see how much fluff she has on her. Oh, no, you dropped the dog. There we go. There she is. Now, if she does, yeah, 1 o'clock. Hi, everyone. We'll just do a bit of waffle because I miss waffling at you all. If she decides to bark at the various delivery people that are probably going to turn up today, I'm really sorry. And I'll try and mute. Yeah, I can mute you on Zoom, can't I? Mute you before it comes through. But yes, there we are. Look, there's your fans, Evie. They're all here for you, not for me. And the other reason for coming on today was I'm so excited to show you these. Look at how gorgeous these are. These earrings are sent to me by Steph and her daughter. Oh no. And they've got little paint palettes on them. How cool is that? Oh, we're just going to say goodbye to dog then. Off we go. Right, be good. I'm working now. Can you hear me all right? I can't get the headphones or the microphone to reach for my new seating position. Wow, loads of you there. I've just looked up and realised how many of you are. Hi, yeah, I'm just going to start at 1, honest. Yeah, it's 2 minutes past. Hi to Claire. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Dad. Hi, Natty. I think that's Natty Potter, isn't it? Hi, Natty. Oh, loads of you. This is brilliant. It's nice to be back. I just hope you've all been keeping sane and busy and happy and getting outside when you can. It's been pouring with rain here, and then it's just brightened up, which is nice, which will be interesting because the lighting has now changed for the picture. Oh, can you see me? Or can you see my picture? I think my my Facebook's done something weird. Well, as long as you can see me, that's fine. Just put a thumbs up in the comments if you can see me right now and not the picture from earlier with the boots on it. Otherwise, all of that would have sounded very weird. Yes, good. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. I mean, I'd rather you couldn't see me, obviously, but wow, this is exciting, right? So what I'm going to do is give you a couple more minutes and we'll work out what we need. We're going to have a go at this lovely Jay, which is a photograph by Jenny, as I know her on Instagram. I think she's called Jenny's Nature Photos or something like that on Instagram. She's a stunning photographer. So she has provided this picture of a jay, which obviously I've painted before, but look, there it is behind me. Oh, there we go. But it's just a really fun one to paint. I thought it would be nice because I keep seeing quite a few of them actually. Really lucky. Often when I'm driving, they just sort of swoop down across the road on the way to school in the mornings at the moment. So, can anybody remember the 3 rules? I don't know why I'm looking down there. I don't need to look at the camera. I've forgotten how to do this. 3 rules. First rule is this is all about having fun and just enjoying what watercolour is, enjoying letting it do its own thing and seeing all the crazy textures that you can create with it, and not putting too much pressure on yourself for it to be this most amazing finished piece of artwork. Just enjoy it. And you get to a certain point, you might just say, right, I've done enough, stop and walk away. You don't have to carry on for as long as I do, or likewise, you can stay longer and keep painting and bring it into a more finished piece. This one probably won't be as detailed as the one I've painted previously, because obviously we've only got an hour. So first rule, have fun. Second rule, lots of da-da, da-da. And I think I've got a third one, not quite as clean, but lots of lovely clean water and as many jars as you can to save you having to keep rushing off to the sink to refill it. Water, clean water. You don't want to put mucky water on your painting. So water. Third rule is look after your lovely brushes, whatever size brushes you've got. If you can keep that lovely point on the end of your brush and avoid leaving it down in the water jar, because these are your best friend. I know I always say that, but they really are. If you're always going to get a favourite brush, this is my favourite one at the moment. I have no idea where it came from. Even all the paint has chipped off the edges of it here, and occasionally I find little flecks, added texture on the painting where the paint's coming off, but it's just got the most amazing point and it holds loads of water. So these are called a round, but they've got that lovely point on the end. Oh wow, lovely to see you. Oh, hi Sarah. Hi Penny. Could you mention that Jake says, oh, hi to Jake the doggy. Hi Lisa. Hi Danielle. Hi Sue. Oh, it's lovely. Loads of you there. It's brilliant. Right, so there's the 3 rules. Oh, the other one that we probably should add 4 is to have a cup of tea, or I've actually got hot water because we've run out of milk. Now this is a technique that was added into the previous tutorials because I was talking too fast, painting too fast, and my Auntie Jill said, if you have a cup of tea, you can keep taking a sip of tea and then it might slow you down. Thanks, Auntie Jill. So hot water, but that's fine. It's good to keep hydrated. Right, I'll stop nattering. I'm gonna switch the camera over and face you over. I'm hoping the lighting will be okay today. So we're going to start with, because of the nature and angle of this, we're going to start at the top of this painting and work our way down to avoid smudging. So that's the plan. So right, I'm going to twist you around. I think this is, look at this. This is, I learned from my dad, who's the best at Heath Robinson Creations. So this is my new fancy, ding, look at that. Bit of tape. It's a bodge job, but I think it'll work. I just got to switch you around just a second and let me see. There we go. Not quite straight, but always been an issue keeping it in focus, but I'm hoping that should be bright enough, because if I turn on the light, it sort of strobes. I think that's more irritating. So let's keep it like that and see how we go. Right. I'm just checking that you can see what I can see, because I've got a bit of a delay. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so hopefully you've got your reference photograph either on a screen or printed out or somewhere near you, so you can see what I'm talking about when I refer to certain parts of the picture. So we're going to start at the top with the beak on this one, because we're going to put mostly just clean fresh water around this top, but we want some nice bleeding to go on to get all these feathery effects, so like we've done with the birds before. So I'm going to start with the beak, and I'm just going to gradually work my way around. And if I go too fast, just put a comment in the comment box and say stop, slow down, and I'll try and take a breather, and you can catch up. So I'm going to use a medium-sized brush. So I'm going to use my favourite, which is a 5. Or if you've got a really big brush, but it's got a nice point on the end, if you're feeling confident, or whatever you've got really, but something that you can control the paint with. So I'm going to start by wetting my brush, and I'm going to find, now it depends whether you've got tubes or pans, or at the moment I've just got loads of plates with lots of different squeezes of colour out that I'm trying to use up. So it's hard for me to actually reference what the colour is, but this one I'm going to use, I'll put it up here, is a little bit of, I think, a Payne's grey. And I'm just going to pull in a little bit of brown there. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint with quite a watery solution. We're going to go to the top of the beak, and you see on the photograph how there's a highlight. I'm going to try and leave that white edge. So I'm going to start by laying down a first wash across the top of the beak. And then cleaning off my brush with water. Oh, it's really handy actually if you've got either a piece of tissue screwed up in your hand, or another piece of paper just to the side of you, just to remove any excess paint or water. That's a really good tip. So I'm just going to bleed out, soften that edge initially on that first white, first grey wash. Now I'm using a hot press paper today, just because it's quite nice when you finally get to do a little bit of detail. It's just a bit easier because you haven't got the rough edges of the paper, but whatever you've got is fine. And you're just going to get a slightly looser looking painting if you're using a rough paper. So there we go, first little wash on there. And then I'm going to go for a stronger version of that Payne's grey and brown. I'm not actually going to bother doing like lots of underpainting for this. I think we're just going to go straight in with a fairly dark. Probably look a bit blue initially. So just go in. Try and keep that edge nice and crisp. And then I'm going to go in to that little bit that makes him look like he's got a smile. Just bring a slightly darker line round there. It's actually quite shiny and glossy, the texture of this beak, isn't it? So what we're trying to recreate is that that shine and that reflection. So I'm just putting a bit of the dark on that top beak. Washing my brush again. Taking all that colour off, but just using the water, I'm just going to blend that out. And then sort of hook it round a little bit more. Because they're a member of the crow family, I'm pretty sure, so it's a carrion beak. Right, I'm going to leave that for a minute. So what we need to do now is to find a really sort of creamy, like yellow ochre and maybe some, I think I've got permanent rose there in that. Let me just move it so you can see. Basically, we're looking just to create like a dirty off-white colour, but with a bit of pink and a bit of cream in it. So we're going to use a lot of water, so it'll be really pale. So just a tiny bit of yellow ochre, gold ochre, and then I think that's a bit permanent rose. And just test it out on your spare paper, and just so it's not too dark. If it's too dark, just add some more water. Now, what I want you to do is just to put a loose wash over the top of his head, but leaving lots of little white areas. You can bring it round under the eye. We're going to leave like a white ring around the eye. Just dragging it down. Adding a little bit more depth there. So that's just a little bit, picked up a bit more of the paint. And if you can use the tip of your brush just to flick out some of those little head feathers. And then down under that where that's going to be dark and round. And then just use some water and just blend that out, because we're going to come back and do the body in a minute, but I don't want to be left with a hard line. So while that's wet, this is the fun bit. Go back into your sort of grey, smudgy colour that you had. Oh, so you go, there's bits of it's my paintbrush falling off. So it's all a bit Payne's grey and a bit of brown. Just had a little bit of red in it, so I'm looking for there we go, something like that. That should do. Now just using the very tip of your brush, and where it's wet, just drop in just a few tiny little ends like of the where those little feathers are. Really, so depending on how wet this area is as to how crazy that will go. So that's what you may want to go for a slightly smaller brush. And this is where it just comes with practice of sort of knowing how much water you've put down. And again, sort of flicking off a few tiny little dark, so wet, because those ends of those feathers, they're white and then they've got little dark tips on, but then they're darker in the root area as well, I think. So just swapping a few around, and hopefully, because if it's nice and wet, if it goes too crazy, you can pull it out again with a tissue. But where it's nice and wet, it should just blend in nicely, give you that nice watercolour feel. So then moving that grey up around a little bit. Now, while this area is wet here, I'm going to get this really rich bit in because I want that to blend out and bleed in rather than being a hard edge. So working fairly quickly, if you can go into your palettes and find something, what do I say? That's black, that's black, but not black. So we're looking for a really, really rich blue with some brown in it. So if you've got something already mixed up from a previous project, or just dip into your palette and see what you can find. So we're looking for something that's put pure black on there, it's just going to look really dull, and the light just soaks into it and it disappears. So bear with me a second. So I'd much rather it look blue, I think, or bluey purple. Oh, I've got hairs on into my brush. Right, so I'm going to go in really dark for this gorgeous. It's a really significant part of its plumage. This bit that makes it identifiable. So just flicking it up a little bit, catching the wash you've done underneath, and hopefully it hasn't dried too quickly, which feels like I might have done. Mine's already dried a bit. It will just bleed into that wash below. And what you can do is you can get a smaller brush and just help it along a bit, just to flick it into that pink. And then I'm sort of going to work in the negative, reverse negative now. So I'm going to, I think I just made that up, clean my brush completely, and then just put some water just on that edge of that little dark area there, just to bring that in so it just starts to blend in with that white underneath. And I'm just going to drop a bit more water on the edges there, just so that it bleeds. That's it. Okay, you all right? So going back to the top of his head now, we'll add in a tiny more, a bit more of a pinky hue. Start to build this up. So I'm just going to add in some slightly more bolder pinky feathers. Again, taking the paint off my brush and then just blending them back into nothing. Just enjoy, if you feel brave enough, just letting the paint flow in amongst that wash, that first wash you did. And if it's dried too quickly, just add some more water and just allow it to flow, because that's how you get that lovely natural watercolour feathery effect. What I want you to do is sort of imagine there's a bit of an imaginary line here, because you see this body of his wing feather, that's obviously a lot further forward than his head. So what we need to do is we need to try and scoop that round with a bit of a natural highlight, without it being like a really obvious line, because there's no real hard defined lines in nature. So it's just scooping that around so that we can leave quite a natural highlight up here in a minute. So carrying on with that pinky, so pinky yellowy ochre wing feather. Still keeping it really washy, because we can get darker and darker with this in a minute. So you just want to, it's all about the textures at the moment. So bringing it down, popping a tiny bit of that grey into there and then back in with the pink, just so you've got that nice variation. And then more water. And obviously, depending on the type of paper you're using, and if you've got it taped to your board, it will help secure it a little bit more. It will start to buckle, but it should dry flat. So then I'm just going to build up some slightly darker washes over the back and then back into those neck and crest feathers. If your little highlight starts to disappear, you can just pull it out again with the tissue. It's only subtle. So try and avoid these beautiful bright wing feathers here. Let's just come right round. Allowing that to just dry off a tiny bit. I'm just going to go back up to the top again and adding a bit of grey into my pink. I'm just going in again, slightly darker. Notice I've switched to quite a smaller brush. I think this is a 3, this one now. They're still keeping it really loose, but you just got a little bit more control with a smaller brush. Looking at the photograph, looking at where those darker areas are, remembering that technique of squinting slightly just to see where those, squint at your photograph, and you can just see the slightly darker areas. Obviously my black, this area here is bled out a lot more than in the actual photograph. If I was worried about it, I could probably try and get some of it off. I'm not really quite happy. I'm more like the fact that it's flowed in, it's nice and natural. Okay, so I'm going to pop in a shadow under here now. So similar colour to the top edge of the beak, really. And it's a shadow, but I'm still going to do it in a feathery style rather than a big solid block. And then fading it out to nothing. In a few little fairy edges around under the beak. Okay, so going in again with a slightly more of a grey pink just around the edge of the wing. Just starting to suggest those little wing where all the separate little feathers are overlapping. But this is going to be really loose painting, so I'm not necessarily going to go in and draw those little feathers in. How's your water looking? This one's a bit grey, so I'm switching that one out, trying to keep it nice and fresh. Right, it's actually looking quite a bit paler on this webcam than it is in real life, but it's done that before, isn't it? It's bleaches out a little bit. Right, so we're going to use this similar colour that we used under here. I will go in and darken that up when it's dry. I'm going to do the same thing with these lovely dark wings. I'm just twisting my board around so I get a better angle. So I'm going to go in really bold, scooping that round. And if it catches and just bleeds into that pink edge, then that is, I think that's gorgeous, but it's up to you. You just get that sort of natural feathering. If any of you get time, I'd love to see a picture of you painting in progress, like where your setup is, like whether you're on the kitchen table or you're doing it, I don't know, wherever you are. It'd just be really nice to actually see, to visualize where you all are. You get to see where I work, my crazy mess. Right, I'm just going to take a little bit of that out because it's got a bit too far. So you see, when you put that first wash down and then you bleed it out with water, that's how you get that nice gradient. It just gives that feather a little bit of texture. And then going in again slightly darker, and leaving a tiny white highlight at the top of that feather. Just let it flow. If it bleeds into the wrong bit, I think as long as it doesn't go too crazy, I just think that's what makes it more natural. Right, I didn't mean to do that. Just to take that off. It wasn't a particularly clean brush. Right, so I'm just putting a bit of clear fresh water down on these wings now. A tiny bit blue, but that's okay. That's what happens when you don't wash your brush off properly. Now the reason I'm doing that is so that when I put this other dark bit of wing in here, hopefully that's going to bleed up really nicely as well. Oh, I'll go too crazy, that's fine. So just keeping it nice and tight on that edge. And if you can vary the colours of your purples and your blacks. These feathers down here are a lot pinkier in my view. I'll just drop the pink in there. Yeah, I may have gotten a little bit crazy. That's all right. You can see, you can just scoop it up with your tissue. This always saves the day. Okay, I'm twisting my board around. Let me just check you can still see that. While I've got this rich colour in my palette, I'm just going to go in now and do a little bit more detail in here around the eye. So I'm twisting it around so I don't smudge it. And then we'll come back and do the rest of the bird. But I just feel like I want him to pop and come alive now. So I'm going to use the same rich, well, mine's a blue mixed with red and a bit of brown I'm working with up here. So not black. So I'm just going to drop in some tiny little feathery details here where those white feathers are overlapping the beak. I'm going to draw in that dark line again because it's just faded out a little bit more on mine. And then I'm going to pop in a darker line just under there for the shadow. And then we'll go in with the eye. So what we're going to do with the eye is we're going to frame it really looking closely at the photograph where those little dark markings are. Trying to keep your marks sort of irregular and feathery. So this will be the most detailed part of the bird. The rest of it we're going to keep really quite loose. So just going to take your time. So I'm outlining that dark edge. So I haven't got a huge amount of water on this brush. I've got a lot more control. So it's not completely round, it's more sort of flat across the top. And then when you've got in the middle is that big black pupil. But what I want you to do is obviously you need to keep that white border around there, but I want you to try and keep that reflection in the top of the eye. So what I'm going to do with mine, I'm going to just find a bit of a sunny blue. I'm just going to wash that in the eye and leave that for a minute. In fact, I'm going to take a bit of it into that white. So you can just start, I'm going to leave the eye, come back to that in a minute, and just start building up slightly darker for those little markings. And then you can do the same with the tips of those feathers at the top. Then I'm just washing them out a little bit with some clean water. And said I put more dark in here, didn't I? So I'm just going to beef this up a tiny bit more. Just to get a bit more contrast. I think I might drop a bit more of that under the beak as well. Again, just catching that edge and allowing that to blend in. There we go. Right, I'm going to come back to the eye because I'll put that big wash of blue in there, just like that, to dry off. Let's have a go at these gorgeous, gorgeous blue wings. So what we need there is an initial underlay wash of a really lovely bright blue. That's the cerulean. Oh, you can't even see that, can you? So that's the cerulean, I think, in my palette there. So I'm going to just take a wash of this. It's really handy if you can twist your board, because when you're painting watercolours, you sort of want to, well, I think most medium actually, you want to sort of be able to move your arm in a really natural way. So because for me to paint in that direction is really uncomfortable. My shoulders are all hunched up. So it's moving the board in a way so that you can actually just let the brush flow and it feels natural. And it'll be different for everyone, because some of you will be left-handed, and it's just finding a natural way just to flow the water. We're keeping that really loose. So tiny bits of white showing through. Right, let's go down to these feet. Where's my favourite brush gone? Oh. I'm going to use a really similar colour to the background colour we've done on these feathers, just down on his legs. I'm just going to wash down and up and round and behind. Leaving a highlight on that left-hand side there, and likewise on here, because leaving that highlight will be what makes it look 3D. So washing that out to nothing. Just a subtle bit of colour. And I think what we'll do is we'll do these tail feathers, and then we'll go back to the top and work our way back down again, because that gives everything a chance to dry off a little bit. So have a look at those tail feathers then. So these are more of a grey pink in my view. That's what I see. So I'm going to mix up. What have I got in here? See what happens when I mix It's a bit purple. Take your time finding the right colour until you're happy. So what we're going to do here, can you see where these lovely white downy feathers are overlapping? What we want you to do is use the very tip of your brush and just kind of draw in a negative image of where those white feathers would be overlapping. So you're sort of flicking it down and round, because you imagine that those feathers are coming over the top, and then you can do your big long sweep. Drop in some fluff on the end of my brush again. So then just drop in some darker, more condensed paint. Oh, it's really hairy, my brush. Into those areas where those white feathers are overlapping. Everyone all right? Just painting away, hoping you're all happy. I will keep this one as a freebie, and I'll put it on my website and you can come back to it. It's my Christmas gift to you, because I understand that a lot of people are back at work. So just getting a few variants of those blacky greys and those tail feathers. And then using that colour you've mixed, it's probably a really nice shadow colour. Actually, I'm going to add a tiny bit more blue in it, but if you just take a really diluted version of that colour and then just go underneath those white feathers and just pop in some shadow, hopefully should just make them stick up a bit more. So I'm just doing a line of that bluey grey, cleaning my brush, and this is where having really clean water is important. So I'm just moving to another jam jar. So taking all the paint off, and then we'll just blend that out to nothing, and that should just create a nice shadow. And actually what I'm going to do is just draw in a suggestion of those feathers there. And while you've got that colour on your brush, let's go in and do the same behind those little white feathers, and then we'll go down the side of this leg. Got strong shadow. Some in here as well. So just lots of little tiny little flecks. And a stronger shadow underneath these blue ones. I'm just going to beef up my shadow up here a little bit. So we're really squinting at your photograph just to try and get the 3D moulding of the bird. rather than it just being flat. So looking at where those darker areas are and start moulding it round a bit. I'm popping a tiny bit more pinky ochre under here because mine's gone very pale. Right, I'm going to leave this to dry. I'm going to go back up to the eye now. I'm just going to touch it with my tissue, just make sure that's completely dry. So what I've done is put that what I call my sunshine blue into the eye, so that when we leave that reflection, it's not just going to be stark white. It should have a little bit of sky reflected in it. So right now what we need to do is find your blackest, not black colour. So mix something up if you haven't already got something. So really, really dark purple with a bit of brown in it. We don't want much water at all for this. We're going to use it really saturated paint, so you've got a lot of control. And if you're really nervous about this, then you can always use like a black fine liner pen, although you know that will be black, but it just gives you a tiny bit more control. And if it doesn't come out dark enough, we can go in again with a different colour. So I don't know if you can see, so my hand's probably in the way. So we're going to go in to that dark pupil. I'm going to go around the bottom and across the top. I'm just going over that line I did before. Not too solidly, just leaving a few little variations. And I'm going to take it up to there, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to use my tissue and just blot a tiny bit. Oh. Hopefully you should catch that little highlight, and he should just come alive with a bit of twinkle in his eye there. Rather than just being a solid black blob, it's just having that great, so you've got the dark, the slightly lighter, and then the white at the top, but obviously it isn't white because we put that tiny bit of sunny blue in it. He's awake now. Right, so this is nearly touch dry, but I'm hoping there's a tiny little bit of movement in the water there. So with a really bright blue, so a bit of the cerulean mixed with some, I'm not sure what that is on the palette there, Prussian blue, I think. I'm just going to draw in, but with the brush, those little markings with the blue. Hopefully they'll bleed a little bit into the blue below. And keeping a bit of a curve, because you can see that those feathers are curved round. If anyone's been lucky enough to find a jay feather, they are really beautiful. I might even have them somewhere. Oh. No, it's flown away. So those stripes get slightly wider. Don't worry too much about accuracy. I know I clearly haven't. Just making them up a little bit. It's nature. It's wonderfully random. So put those dark blue lines in, and then we're going to go in for maybe the same colour that you use for your eye, and just go on one side. I think I'm going to do the underside, and just bring in a slightly darker line, and hopefully that will bleed in and give you a nice feathery effect on that edge of the blue. I'm just going to scoop my shadow down here a bit more strength. And then using that same shadow colour, stop speaking. Then we'll just draw in with the point of your brush the little shadows of where these white feathers are overlapping. And you can just try and vary the tone. We'll go a bit darker, so just a tiny bit more paint. How are we looking? All right, I'm going to just pop a suggestion of this tree trunk in, just so that we can sit him down when I put some more detail in these feet, because he just needs to be grounded. So I'm just going to use a really big brush. I'm going to keep this quite loose. And I'm just going to go for a bit of a random greeny, smudgy colour in my palette. Just try and catch a nice sharp line at the top. And then just go mad. It's just a suggestion that he's sat on something rather than floating midair. And you drag the brush, you get some nice marks on the paper. If you've got a rough paper, you'll get lovely marks. So just keep that edge nice and soft. Right, stand back and have a look at your painting so far. Overall, mine is quite pale. The contrast is working really nicely, I think, with the dark, the blues, the purples, the wings standing out, although I think I could probably, when that's dry, I can pull in a slightly tighter line for that shadow. But overall, the back of my bird and the crown, I'm going to add another wash because it's just looking a little bit pale for my liking. So it's up to you, it depends what yours is looking like. So I'm going to mix up a yellow, ochre and pink again. Testing it out, lots of water though, so it's going to be quite loose. And I'm just going to take over the top of mine just a tiny bit more depth of colour. Just like that, it just seemed a bit faint. Don't worry if you go out of the lines. In fact, I actively encourage that. And I might even do that. I do like it when you get a nice smudge out of the lines. Just do that. Right, while this is still wet up here, with a small brush and your shadow colour, which I'm going to make another one because mine's disappeared, so with the purpley browny colour, you go in underneath your claw and the foot, that dark edge. That should sit him down then. I'm exaggerating it slightly, a bit more than it is in the photograph. You can just start to add in a tiny bit of detail. You could do this with a pencil when it's completely dry, or if you want to keep it still looking quite loose, I'm just going to go around with that shadow colour and just take it underneath the edges of the claws and the foot there, just drawing in some tiny little lines. And I want to sharpen up that shadow, don't I? So I do that. So to try and get that wing to kick forward a bit more. Squinting at your photograph, squinting at your painting, just seeing where any areas need a bit more contrast. This is where you all develop your own style, really, because of how you see the photo that you're copying and how you like your finished piece to be, whether you want it very subtle or you want it to be bold. Some people naturally are a lot bolder than others with watercolours, and that's about being brave, I think. So I'm not going to do a background on mine. The last one I did was had quite a lively background, so I'm just going to keep mine as a pale back. Oh no, Bryony! Oh, I'm so sorry. I had to do it at 1 o'clock. She thought it was 2. I'm really sorry. You can listen. Join in now for the live bit, and then it will be live as soon as I can. I'll put it back up, and you can do it again and pretend that I'm actually there with you. So I'm going to say hi to Bryony and all the kids who are amazing and have joined in with nearly all, I think probably all of the lives. And they're all really talented, a whole talented family there. Sorry, I changed it to 1 o'clock because I have to pick up my daughter from college, and 2 o'clock's a bit tricky for me. Oh, I hope you enjoy it anyway. So what we're doing now, we're just sort of titivating around, really, just finishing it off, tidying it up, brightening it up in places. It depends what you might find yours is already done and you've stepped away. I'm going to pop in some more sludgy green just in here while that's still wet, just to get a bit more texture. looking at the back, so you see I still think mine needs a bit more colour. No, I'm going to go mad, put a bit more pink in there, pinky grey. Don't overthink it, just about enjoying it. It's just knowing when to stop. That's the tricky thing. So I'll step away from the paintbrush, which is, I think, what I'm going to do. I'm going to step away. So I'm not going to do a background in mine. If you want to do a background like the one in the example, I would let it completely dry, and then I would work with a big brush sort of from the edge of the painting. And then what I use is just a drinking straw to blow the paint out in those directions to get that really fancy effect. Or you can do some of the techniques we've used before, where you drop the salt on there. So table salt or sea salt, mixture of the two on your background will give a really lovely effect. You let it dry and you take it off at the end, and you get that lovely sort of where the paint's repelled the salt. You can do the technique we've done before, where you lay a wash down and then you drop wet on wet, just clear water, and that will give you lovely little bursts of water. That's a nice texture. Or you can just leave it white, which I'm going to do with mine. But what I have to do with every painting, and it's just become something I love, is a really bright blue and a big brush, and then I just flick it all around, and it just, to me, it just brings a bit of sunshine. You can use any colour you like, just avoid red, because it's been a bit of a bloodbath. So you can have a bit of blue, a bit purple, as much as you like, as little as you like. It's just sort of frames it and finishes it off. And I think, because I wanted to keep this one really loose compared to the example, bearing in mind that it's been just under an hour, because I think I waffled quite a bit. And my hot water is now cold water, but that's fine. So yeah, it does look quite pale on your screen. It's honestly, it's I'll hold it up to the camera. Mine isn't quite as pale as that. It's a little more pink around here, but let me see if I can switch you back around. See how you got on. Dun, dun, dun. Move my tripod. How did it get on? I don't know whether this shows up any different. So it's a lot darker on that view than the webcam overhead view. It's probably going to drip now, but there you go. I'm quite happy with him. I think he's fun and he's loose, and the wing feathers are really shining through. Most important thing is I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed seeing all your lovely little comments. I'm really sorry, Bryony, you missed it. And thank you again, Steph, for the amazing earrings, which I put on especially for today. Look at those. Thanks, guys. Been lovely to see you. If I can sneak another one in over Christmas, if the family allow, I will. I'll come in here and hide, and we'll do another one, because I think that'll be really nice. But if I don't get a chance, have a lovely Christmas. It's been a weird year, but I think some good things have come out of it, personally. But the most important thing is that you all stay safe and happy, and keep painting. So I'm going to go now. And Evie's been really good today. How about that? But thanks all for watching, and I'll see you soon.